The city never sleeps, but tonight, Manhattan felt like it was holding its breath. Beneath the shimmering skyline, chaos reigned inside the towering Rodriguez Global Holdings headquarters. Henry Rodriguez, 34 billionaire tech mogul, sat at the head of a glass conference table. His silver tie hung loose, and his sharp blue eyes were shadowed by exhaustion. Around him, the top executives argued over each other, voices rising like a storm. "We lost $12 billion in market value in 24 hours, CFO Mark Dempsey barked. "Morgan Group is manipulating stock prices, which is another shot back. Kingston Corp has joined them," someone whispered. Henry slammed his palm on the glass table, silencing them. "Enough. I don't need excuses. I need solutions." But no one spoke. No one had one. Rodriguez Global, a titan of tech and finance, was bleeding out in real time. In the cold glow of the Bloomberg terminals, red numbers cascaded endlessly. For the first time in his career, Henry Rodriguez, the man Forbes once called the kingmaker of Silicon Valley, was cornered. Outside the boardroom, a young woman in a navy blue janitor's uniform quietly pushed her cleaning cart down the marble hallway. Skylar Davis kept her head down, her dark curls framing her sharp cheekbones, blending into the silence. She was invisible here. She wanted it that way. Skylar had been working as a nighttime cleaner for months. No one ever noticed her. No one ever asked why a woman like her, poised, elegant despite the uniform, was wiping down corporate floors at midnight. But tonight, fate noticed her. As she passed the glass-walled boardroom, she heard frantic voices and paused. Her gaze lingered on Henry. Shoulders taut, brows furrowed, his entire empire on the line. Something inside her stirred. Suddenly, the COO burst out of the room, nearly colliding with her. "Move!" he snapped, glaring. Skylar flinched, but caught sight of a terminal through the open door. One glance at the stock dashboard and her heartbeat quickened. They were panicking, and they were panicking wrongly. She hesitated only a moment before stepping inside. Every head turned. The boardroom fell silent. "Miss, this is a restricted meeting," the assistant snapped. "I know," Skylar said softly, her voice steady but low. "But if you keep shorting those assets, you'll collapse your liquidity in under 2 hours." The room froze. Mark Dempsey frowned. "Excuse me." Skylar walked to the screen, her fingers dancing across the Bloomberg terminal. She didn't ask permission. She didn't need it. "The problem isn't Morgan Group," she murmured, her amber eyes scanning numbers at lightning speed. "It's Kingston Corp, leveraging offshore derivatives. See here?" She tapped a column of data. "They're using synthetic swaps to manipulate price pressure." The CFO blinked, stunned. "How do you even know that?" Skylar ignored him, her hands flying. "You need to reverse hedge against their shorts, bypass the primary exchange, and reroute liquidity through European futures." She hit execute like this. Within 60 seconds, the red plummeting numbers slowed, then steadied, then rose. "Holy," the Kiwu whispered. "We're up 2 billion in 1 minute." Henry leaned back in his chair, watching her. Calm, precise, unshaken. She didn't belong here, yet moved like she owned the room. And at that moment, he knew this woman was dangerous. The boardroom erupted in chaos, but Henry's eyes locked on Skylar. "Who are you?" he asked finally. She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Just the cleaning staff. No janitor executes a $2 billion hedge in 60 seconds. Skylar gathered her supplies calmly. "Then you should hire better janitors." Before anyone could respond, she left the room, the soft click of her shoes echoing down the marble hallway. For a man like Henry Rodriguez, who had everything wealth, power, control, being outmaneuvered was intolerable. Yet tonight, a woman who scrubbed his floors had done just that. And he couldn't stop thinking about her. Henry called in his head of security an hour later in his private office, overlooking the glittering Hudson. Find everything you can on her. Skylar Davis. When the report came back, it was thin. Too thin. No social media. No credit history beyond the last 2 years. No record of higher education, yet she'd read complex financial derivatives like breathing. Henry leaned back in his leather chair, swirling his glass of bourbon. Who are you really? Skylar Davis. Outside, the New York night stretched endlessly, but in Henry's chest, an unfamiliar fire burned. Meanwhile, Skylar walked the empty Brooklyn streets, pulling her coat tighter against the winter wind. Her phone buzzed. Ethan Walker. She stared at the name for a long moment before answering. Why are you calling me? She asked quietly. Because this is my last warning, Ethan said, his voice cold. You embarrassed the Walker family tonight. Please don't show your face at our events again. Skylar laughed bitterly. Your events? Or your parents' parties where they pretend I don't exist? You knew what you were when you married me, he snapped. And now I know what I am without you, she replied calmly, then hung up. Her hand trembled slightly, but her eyes burned with something more substantial than pain. Determination. The next morning, Skylar returned to Rodriguez Global, not as a cleaner, but summoned directly to Henry's office. When she stepped inside, sunlight streamed through the glass walls, illuminating the sleek, minimalistic space. Henry stood by the window, hands in pockets, his tailored charcoal suit cutting a sharp silhouette. I need an explanation, he said without turning. For what she asked, arching a brow. For how a janitor just saved my company from a $12 billion collapse. Skylar crossed her arms. Your people aren't as smart as they think they are. Henry turned, then his gaze sharp but amused. So please, help me fix them. She blinked. Excuse me. Work for me. Not as a cleaner. As my strategist. Silence hung between them. You don't even know who I am, she said finally. That's precisely why I want you, he replied. Skylar hesitated, weighing her options. Accepting meant stepping into a spotlight she had been hiding from for years. Refusing meant walking away from the one man who could unknowingly lead her back to everything she had lost. I'll think about it, she said softly. Henry studied her, his expression unreadable. Do more than think about it. For the first time that night, she felt the weight of his presence, commanding, magnetic, yet somehow restrained. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Skylar, he said quietly. She looked back. Thank you. It was just 2 words, but they held a promise neither of them understood yet. 2 days later, headlines exploded across Wall Street. Rodriguez Global survives. Hostile attack. Mystery insider saves billions. But in the shadows, Morgan Group and Kingston Corp regrouped. They wanted blood. Meanwhile, Ethan Walker and his mother launched a smear campaign against Skylar, feeding tabloids lies about her past. Pictures of her cleaning uniform surfaced online. Gold digger, fraud, homewrecker. Skylar ignored them. Her silence was her weapon. But Henry noticed. And Henry never forgave enemies. Late that Friday night, Henry stood again in his office overlooking the city lights. When Skylar walked in, there was no hesitation in her step this time. I'll take the job, she said. Henry smiled faintly, pouring 2 glasses of bourbon. Welcome to Rodriguez Global, Ms. Davis. What neither of them knew was that this decision would ignite a war, one that would change Wall Street and their lives forever. Los Angeles shimmered beneath the California sun, but inside the glass mansion of the Walker estate, the air was heavy and cold. Skylar Davis stood before a marble vanity, her reflection calm, almost serene. The silk of her emerald dress clung to her curves, and her dark curls swept elegantly over one shoulder. Tonight was the annual Walker Enterprises Gala, the city's most powerful gathered under one roof. But Skylar wasn't here as a guest. Not really. In this house, she'd always been an outsider. Sky. They're ready downstairs, came a soft voice behind her. Lena was one of the few staff members who treated her kindly. Thanks, Skylar, whispered, inhaling deeply before stepping into the hallway, lined with priceless art and cold, judgmental eyes. As she descended the grand staircase, conversations dipped, whispers rose. Heads turned. That's Ethan Walker's wife. The janitor. She has no pedigree. Her family's nothing. I heard she only married him for money. Every word sliced deeper than the last. But Skylar kept her chin high. She'd learned long ago that pride was her only armor. Across the room, Ethan Walker stood tall in his navy tuxedo, sipping bourbon, flanked by his mother, Victoria Walker, a woman whose gaze could freeze oceans. Skylar, Victoria said sweetly when she approached, though her smile never reached her eyes. I do hope you've practiced tonight. You wouldn't want to embarrass the family. I wasn't aware standing quietly required rehearsal. Skylar replied, her voice silky but sharp. Victoria's smile faltered ever so slightly. Careful, dear. Sarcasm doesn't suit you. The gala unfolded in waves of champagne laughter and veiled hostility. Skylar moved gracefully, enduring polite smiles and hidden daggers, until Ethan approached her with a glass of wine. Try to blend in, he murmured through clenched teeth. I'm not a wallflower, she replied coolly. His jaw tightened. This isn't your world, Skylar. Stop pretending it is. She turned to face him fully, her amber eyes steady. You married me into this world, Ethan. You should stop pretending you're ashamed of it. The silence between them stretched brittle and sharp. But before he could respond, Amelia Harrington glided into view, the heiress of Harrington Capital and Ethan's childhood friend. Skylar. Amelia purred, feigning warmth. Lovely dress. Is it off the rack? Skylar smiled, unbothered. No, actually. Custom made. But I love that you think it looks accessible. Amelia blinked, momentarily stunned, before recovering with a saccharine laugh. How charming. Later that night, whispers grew louder. Skylar overheard Ethan's cousins in the corner. Did you hear Kingston Corp might buy out Walker Enterprises? Ethan's mother practically begged them for the deal. Skylar's brows furrowed. Kingston Corp, the same rival that had nearly destroyed Rodriguez Global. This wasn't business as usual. It was war. Her mind raced. If Kingston acquired Walker Enterprises, it would give them leverage against Henry Rodriguez. And if Henry fell, so would she. After the gala, Ethan cornered Skylar in the hallway of their Malibu penthouse. Kingston approached us today, he said bluntly. I know, she replied. He narrowed his eyes. You're talking to Rodriguez, aren't you? Skylar folded her arms. I work for him now. That's not a secret. Then stay out of this. Whatever Kingston wants, it's bigger than you, Sky. Her lips curved into a cold smile. Nothing's bigger than me when someone threatens what's mine. Ethan stared at her, stunned. He'd never seen this side of her before, the steel beneath the silk. Skylar flew to Miami with Henry for a private investor summit the following week. The city's neon skyline reflected off the bay, but tensions simmered inside the Atlantis Towers Hotel. Kingston Corp executives were here. So were the Morgans and the Harringtons. And Skylar had a plan. Dressed in a tailored black dress that demanded attention, she entered the grand ballroom alongside Henry, the world's cameras flashing. Whispers followed them like shadows. Is that her? The woman who saved Rodriguez Global? She used to clean floors. Right now she's… What? His strategist Skylar ignored them all, her focus razor sharp. The summit erupted into chaos when Kingston unveiled their intent to seize the Miami waterfront project, a $40 billion venture that could shift global power balances overnight. Skylar leaned close to Henry, her voice low and deliberate. "They're bluffing. Their liquidity's tied up offshore. If we trigger a margin call through Dubai Commodities, Kingston folds." Henry arched a brow. "You're sure? Trust me." Within hours, Skylar executed a silent, precise attack from her suite upstairs. It was too late when Kingston's CFO realized what she'd done. Kingston Corp lost $6 billion overnight. By dawn, news outlets exploded Skylar Davis topples Kingston Corp in overnight power play. For the first time, Skylar wasn't invisible anymore. She was a storm. But victory came at a cost. In Los Angeles, Victoria Walker publicly denounced Skylar, calling her a manipulative opportunist and accusing her of seducing Rodriguez to destroy the Walkers. Ethan called that night. "You made us enemies, Sky. Do you even care?" "Enemies make me stronger," she whispered, then hung up. Alone in her penthouse, she stood by the window overlooking the glittering Pacific, her reflection fractured against the glass. She thought she'd left the past behind. But the war she had tried to avoid had finally found her. Henry called later that evening. "I owe you more than I can say," he admitted softly. "Then don't say it," she replied. "Use it." There was silence, then a chuckle. "You know, most people would be terrified to face down billionaires. They may be terrified of me instead." Henry paused. "Skylar, what are you really after?" She hesitated, her voice barely a whisper. "Justice." Neither said another word, but something unspoken passed between them. Skylar became a name on every investor's lips in the following days. Some called her brilliant. Others called her reckless. But as she walked through Rodriguez Global's New York office, heads turned and conversations hushed. For the first time, she belonged somewhere. Or so she thought. Because deep in a skyscraper across Wall Street, a hidden consortium of power brokers watched her rise with growing unease. And one of them whispered, "Find out who Skylar Davis really is, before she burns us all." A week had passed since Miami. Skylar Davis sat in her Manhattan loft, the soft hum of the city below her, the midnight glow painting her skin in pale silver. Despite the chaos swirling around her name in financial circles, her world had never felt quieter. Her fingers traced the edge of an envelope lying on the coffee table, a single wax seal, embossed with a crest she hadn't seen in 7 years. The Davis Empire. The family she walked away from. The life she buried. The secret she swore she'd never reveal. Henry Rodriguez arrived unannounced the next morning, filling the minimalist apartment. Dressed in a dark cashmere coat, his sharp blue eyes scanned her carefully. "You've been avoiding my calls," he said softly. "I needed space," Skylar replied, wrapping her robe tighter. "There's too much noise right now." Henry studied her, his voice low but steady. "The market sees you as a rising star, Skylar. But Kingston and Morgan see you as a threat, and threats get destroyed." She met his gaze, her voice firm but quiet. "Let them try." Henry stepped closer, lowering his tone. "You know something I don't." Skylar hesitated, then looked away toward the envelope. "There are things about me," she whispered, "that you're better off not knowing." That evening, Skylar opened the envelope. Inside was a single letter, written in her late father's elegant hand. "Skylar, if you are reading this, the shadows we built are collapsing. The Davis Empire is no longer safe. Trust no one. But when the time comes, reclaim what is yours." Her father had built the Davis Empire, a trillion-dollar financial dynasty stretching across continents. But his mysterious death 7 years ago triggered a vicious power struggle. Skylar had disappeared into obscurity to survive. But now her enemies were forcing her hand. She was done hiding. Meanwhile, Henry tasked his private intelligence network with digging deeper into Skylar's past. Files arrived in encrypted drops, each revelation more staggering than the last. No financial records before age 22. No documented employment history. A sealed court file involving the Davis family trust. Then came the photo, Skylar at 19, standing beside her father, Jameson Davis, at a private gala in Dubai. She wasn't a cleaner. She wasn't a strategist. She was the missing heir to an empire. Henry stared at the image for a long time before closing the file. For the first time, the ground beneath him shifted. 2 nights later, Henry invited Skylar to the top floor of the Rodriguez Tower. The city lights glittered beneath them, but the air between them was sharp. "I know who you are," Henry said finally. Skylar's shoulders stiffened, but she didn't flinch. "Do you? You're not just a woman who saved my company. You're Davis Empire's hidden heir." Silence stretched between them, filled only by the hum of Manhattan. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. She met his gaze, her voice steady despite the storm behind her eyes. "Because anyone who knows who I am ends up dead." Henry stepped closer, his voice low, dangerous. "Then let them try me." The next day, an embossed invitation arrived at Rodriguez Global, sealed in gold foil. "You are cordially invited to the Harrington Capital Gala venue, Louvre Museum, Paris attire, black tie." Every principal power broker in the world would be there, including the Morgan Group, Kingston Corp., and for the first time in years, the Davis board. Henry looked at Skylar across his desk. "This is a trap." Skylar's amber eyes burned with quiet fire. "Good. I'm tired of running." The Louvre glittered under the Parisian moonlight. Skylar descended the grand staircase in a sweeping black velvet gown, her presence commanding electric. Cameras flashed, whispers rippled through the crowd. "That's her, the woman from Miami." Rodriguez brought her bold move. Inside the glass-roofed atrium, the air hummed with tension. At the far end of the room stood Nathaniel Morgan, patriarch of the Morgan Group, his smile sharp as a blade. "Ms. Davis," he drawled when they crossed paths. "I've heard legends about you." "And I've heard rumors about you," Skylar replied evenly. "Most of them end badly." Nathaniel laughed softly, but his eyes were cold. "Enjoy the evening. You may not enjoy the ending." Later that night, Skylar slipped away from the gala into one of the Louvre's deserted corridors. An older man in a tailored navy suit waited in the shadows. Marcus Blackwell, her father's former advisor. "You shouldn't be here," Marcus said gravely. "Neither should you," she countered. He studied her for a moment before speaking. "Your uncle Theodore Davis orchestrated your father's death. He's aligned with Kingston and Morgan. They want control of the Davis Empire and will kill you to get it." Skylar's breath caught, but her voice was steady. "Then it's time I stopped hiding." Marcus handed her a slim encrypted drive. "This holds the proof. But trust no one, Skylar. Not even Rodriguez." In the main hall, Henry found Skylar standing by the edge of the atrium, her face pale but composed. Music swelled as couples danced beneath the glass pyramid above. "Are you all right?" Henry asked softly. "No," she whispered, "but I will be." He offered his hand. "Then dance with me." As they moved across the marble floor, whispers followed them like shadows. But Henry leaned close. His words meant only for her. "Whatever storm is coming, we face it together." For the first time in years, she let herself believe him. 2 days later, headlines exploded across global media. Skylar Davis, the missing heir, returns. Davis Empire divided, amid allegations of murder and fraud. Wall Street erupted. Stocks soared. Rivals circled like sharks. Skylar Davis was no longer a mystery. She was a target. And as the sun set over Manhattan, Skylar stood at the window of Rodriguez Tower, encrypted drive in hand, the city glittering below. "They wanted a war," she murmured. "Now they have one." Behind her, Henry's voice was low but certain. "Then let's win it." Paris awoke beneath a pale, cloudless sky. Skylar Davis stood by the window of the penthouse suite of the Hotel de Crillon, watching the city stir beneath her. The Eiffel Tower glittered in the distance, but her mind was 1,000 miles away. Her phone buzzed endlessly. News outlets screamed her name. The missing heiress. Returns. Skylar Davis. Breaks. Silence in Paris. Henry Rodriguez sat on the edge of the bed, tie, half-nodded, scrolling through a barrage of market reports. He said that Davis Empire's valuation surged 30% overnight without looking up. Morgan and Kingston are panicking. Skylar's gaze remained fixed on the horizon. Good. Let them panic. But beneath her composure, her chest tightened with the weight of the encrypted drive Marcus had given her, proof that her uncle Theodore orchestrated her father's death. The past was no longer buried. It was at her doorstep. That afternoon, Rodriguez Global's private jet ferried them to an emergency board meeting at the Davis Empire headquarters in London. Skylar stepped foot into the empire she once fled for the first time in years. The Davis boardroom glittered with power mahogany walls, crystal chandeliers, portraits of ancestors long gone. Every gaze in the room was cold, calculating. At the head of the table sat Theodore Davis. Niece. He greeted her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. What a surprise. Skylar's amber eyes met his, unflinching. "Uncle, I wish I could say the same." The board erupted in whispers as Theodore addressed the room. Skylar abandoned this family years ago. She has no claim to this empire. Henry leaned forward, his tone measured but lethal. She has more claim than anyone here. The markets already see her as the face of Davis Empire. Fight her, and you fight Wall Street. Theodore's smile faltered for just a second. After the meeting, Theodore cornered Skylar in a quiet corridor lined with ancestral portraits. "You shouldn't have come back," he murmured, his voice low. Skylar tilted her head, her voice calm but sharp. "Funny. I was about to tell you the same thing." His eyes darkened. "You think Henry can protect you? He's nothing compared to what's coming." Skylar stepped closer, lowering her voice until it was a whisper. "I don't need Henry to protect me. You should be asking who's going to protect you." For the first time, her uncle hesitated. Henry and Skylar met Marcus Blackwell that night at a private club along the Seine. As Marcus laid out his findings, the candlelight reflected off dark wood and polished glass. Marcus explained that Theodore controls 4 offshore trusts funneling billions to Kingston Corp. If we can expose the transfers, we cripple him and Kingston with him. Skylar leaned forward, her voice steady. "Then we start tonight." Henry studied her, quietly concerned, flickering beneath his calm exterior. "Skylar, this puts a target on your back." "It's already there," she replied softly. The following evening, Paris buzzed with anticipation as the Rivière Soirée, an elite private summit of global financiers, commenced. The event was staged aboard the glass-domed yacht Le Cygne Noir, drifting down the Seine under a canopy of stars. Skylar arrived, draped in midnight silk, her presence commanding immediate attention. Cameras flashed, whispers followed. "That's Skylar Davis. She toppled Kingston in Miami. And now she's here." Inside, deals worth billions were brokered over champagne and secrets. But Skylar's focus was razor-sharp. Amelia Harrington leaned casually against a marble bar at the far side of the yacht, swirling her wine. Still playing strategist, Skylar. Amelia drawled, her smile venomous. Skylar returned her gaze evenly. Some of us play to win, others play to belong. Amelia's jaw tightened, but she said nothing more. Midway through the night, Henry intercepted a coded message through his private security network. Kingston intends to trigger a flash crash. Target Rodriguez Global. Within minutes, Skylar commandeered a secluded alcove with her laptop, her fingers flying over encrypted networks. Henry stood behind her, silent but unyielding. "They're leveraging synthetic swaps to spike short interest," she murmured. "If they succeed, Rodriguez Global loses $40 billion before morning." Henry's jaw hardened. "Stop them." Skylar's amber eyes burned. "Watch me." By the time the yacht docked at midnight, Kingston's entire plan had collapsed. Their trades frozen, their liquidity evaporated. Rodriguez Global's stock rebounded 12% overnight. Whispers rippled through Paris. Skylar Davis just outmaneuvered Kingston again. Back at the Crillon, Skylar sat on the balcony, the cool Parisian breeze tangling her curls. Henry joined her, 2 glasses of bourbon in hand. "You saved me." Again he said softly. "I saved us," she corrected gently. He studied her for a moment, his voice lower now. "When does it end, Skylar?" She didn't answer immediately. Her gaze swept over the glittering city lights, haunted and unyielding. "When the people who killed my father are gone," she whispered finally. Henry set his glass down, leaning closer. "Then we finish this. Together." 3 nights later, Marcus Blackwell called with urgent news. "We've been compromised. Someone inside Rodriguez Global leaked our plans." Skylar's blood ran cold. "Who?" "I don't know yet," Marcus admitted. "But whoever it is, they're close to Henry." She ended the call without a word. That night, she sat across from Henry at a quiet Parisian bistro, her expression unreadable. "Do you trust everyone around you?" she asked finally. Henry met her gaze steadily. "I trust you. That's enough." For the first time, she wished it were true. By week's end, invitations arrived for the Monaco Global Investment Forum, the most exclusive financial summit in the world. Every major player would be there. Every rival. Every threat. Skylar turned the gold-foiled envelope over in her hand, her reflection distorted in its sheen. "Monaco," she murmured. "That's where this ends." Henry glanced at her, brows raised. "Or where it begins." As their jet lifted from Paris toward Monaco, Skylar gazed at the endless stretch of clouds, her expression carved in steel. Somewhere below, Theodore Davis plotted her downfall. Kingston nursed its wounds. Morgan sharpened its knives. But Skylar Davis was done being hunted. For years she'd hidden in the shadows. Now she would become the storm. And when it hit, the world would never forget her name. The French Riviera shimmered beneath the Mediterranean sun as the private jet touched down in Monaco. From above, the coastline glittered like diamonds scattered along sapphire waves. But beneath the postcard-perfect facade, danger pulsed like an unspoken secret. Skylar Davis stepped onto the tarmac in a cream silk suit, her dark curls pulled back into an elegant chignon. Henry Rodriguez exuded quiet dominance at her side, his tailored navy suit commanding respect without a word. Reporters crowded behind barricades, shouting questions. "Skylar, are you taking over Davis Empire? Mr. Rodriguez, is it true that Kingston declared bankruptcy? Is Theodore Davis joining forces with Morgan Group?" Neither answered. This wasn't the time for words. Henry's voice was low, but inside the armored Maybach waiting for them. Monaco isn't just another summit. It's a battlefield. Skylar met his gaze unflinching. Then we win the war. The Monaco Global Investment Forum was hosted at the legendary Hotel de Paris, its marble halls dripping with opulence. Titans of finance royalty and world leaders converged under chandeliers, worth more than small nations. Skylar entered the grand ballroom in a midnight sapphire gown, diamonds glimmering at her throat. Every head turned. Whispers rippled through the crowd. That's Skylar Davis, the lost heiress. Rodriguez's strategist, or his queen. At the center of the room stood Theodore Davis, her uncle smiling like a man who believed he had already won. Across the hall, Nathaniel Morgan and Victor Kingston whispered conspiratorially, their champagne glasses clinking as if toasting her downfall. And from the balcony above, Amelia Harrington watched it all with the satisfaction of a predator. That night, the summit's opening gala unfolded beneath a ceiling of crystal and gold. Skylar navigated the currents of power with the grace of someone born to rule, but 1,000 silent battles raged beneath the glamour. She spotted Marcus Blackwell near the champagne bar, his expression grave. "Kingston's made their move," he murmured. "They're pushing a proxy vote tomorrow to strip you of Davis Empire's controlling shares." Skylar's pulse quickened, but her voice remained cool. "Then we counter tonight." Henry appeared at her side, a glass of wine in hand, his tone casual but edged. "Whatever you're planning, make it quiet. The whole world is watching." She glanced up at him, her amber eyes steady. "Let them watch." Hours later, Skylar stepped onto a secluded terrace overlooking the sparkling Monaco harbor. The scent of salt and jasmine drifted in the warm air. She wasn't alone. Theodore appeared from the shadows, his smile sharp. "You've made quite the spectacle, Skylar." "Better than being your pawn," she replied evenly. His eyes narrowed. "Walk away while you still can. The Morgan Group and Kingston Corp are already in my pocket. Henry won't be able to save you." Skylar took a step closer, her voice low and lethal. "You're right about one thing, Uncle. Henry can't save me." She leaned in, her words a whisper. "I'm not the one who needs saving." Theodore's smile faltered for the first time. After midnight, Skylar and Henry met Marcus in a private suite overlooking the casino. Maps, encrypted tablets, and files covered the marble table. "Here's the play," Marcus said, tapping the screen. "Kingston is leveraging a hidden trust in the Cayman Islands to push the proxy vote. If we expose the shell accounts before the summit ends, we flip the board in our favor." Skylar frowned. "And if we fail?" Marcus hesitated. "Then Theodore consolidates control of Davis Empire, and Kingston takes Rodriguez Global down." Henry folded his arms, his voice steady. "Failure isn't an option." The next evening, the forum hosted its infamous Casino Royale charity gala, a decadent night where fortunes were won and lost over baccarat tables and whispered deals. Skylar, draped in a backless emerald gown, moved through the casino like a queen among pawns. Every glance, every step was calculated. Nathaniel Morgan raised a glass at a private high-stakes table as she approached. "Care to play Ms. Davis, or are you here to bluff, as always?" Skylar's smile was incredible. "I don't bluff, Mr. Morgan. I calculate." 5 hands later, Morgan was down $5 million. Skylar leaned in, her voice velvet over steel. "Consider that a preview of tomorrow." Just before dawn, Marcus burst into Skylar's suite, breathless. "We found the leak," he said urgently. "It's someone inside Rodriguez Global, someone close to Henry." Skylar's stomach tightened. "Who?" Marcus hesitated. "Amelia Harrington. She's been feeding Theodore and Kingston every move we make." Skylar's chest constricted fury, simmering beneath her calm. Amelia wasn't just a rival, she was a viper. Henry entered moments later, his jaw tight when Marcus delivered the news. "I'll handle Amelia," he said coldly. Skylar shook her head. No. Let me. At the next night's closing gala, Skylar cornered Amelia beneath the glittering chandeliers of the Hotel de Paris ballroom. "You've been busy," Skylar said softly. Amelia's smile was razor-sharp. "Information wants to be free." "So does justice," Skylar whispered, sliding an encrypted tablet onto the bar. On the screen, proof of Amelia's collusion with Kingston and Theodore flashed like a death sentence. Amelia's confident facade cracked, but Skylar leaned closer. "Step aside, Amelia, or you'll fall with them." For once, Amelia had no reply. The next morning, the proxy vote convened. Theodore entered the boardroom with Morgan and Kingston at his side, radiating victory. But Skylar was ready. Before the vote began, Marcus unveiled evidence of Kingston's offshore fraud, backed by Henry's cyber forensics team. Gasps rippled through the room. Within minutes, Kingston's voting rights were revoked. Skylar raised her gaze to Theodore, her voice calm, commanding. "This empire was built with my father's hands, and today, I reclaim it." One by one, the board members turned. The vote was unanimous. Skylar Davis became the official CEO of Davis Empire. That night, Monaco glittered beneath fireworks as Skylar stood on the balcony of the Hotel de Paris overlooking the harbor. Henry joined her, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "You did it," he said quietly. Skylar's amber eyes reflected the lights below. "No, we did it." He watched her for a long moment before replying softly, "This is only the beginning." She turned to him, her expression steady, unyielding. "Then let them come." Because Skylar Davis was no longer the invisible cleaner in the shadows. She was the queen, and the game had only just begun. 3 weeks after Monaco, London awoke to chaos. Skyscrapers reflected the rising sun as the financial district erupted in frenzy. News outlets screamed in bold headlines, "Skylar Davis takes control of Davis Empire, Morgan Group declares war." From the penthouse suite of the Shard, Skylar stood by the panoramic window, coffee untouched in her hand. The River Thames shimmered below, but her amber eyes were fixed on the storm brewing across the Atlantic. Henry Rodriguez entered quietly, sleeves rolled up, carrying a stack of reports. He said, "Morgan's bleeding from Monaco, but they're not backing down. They've launched a hostile takeover of your European assets." Skylar's jaw tightened. "Let them try. London isn't Monaco. They'll find the rules are different here." That afternoon, Marcus Blackwell arrived at Davis Empire's London headquarters, urgency in his stride. "It's worse than we thought," he said grimly. "Morgan's partnered with an unknown entity called Blackthorn Holdings. They're using shell companies across Eastern Europe. It's surgical, Skylar. They're dismantling you piece by piece." Skylar set down her coffee, her voice calm but commanding. Then we cut deeper. Henry exchanged a glance with Marcus, concern etched in his features. "Sky, they're not just after your company anymore. They're after you." An embossed envelope arrived that evening, delivered by hand to the penthouse. "Skylar Davis and Henry Rodriguez. You are cordially invited to the Windsor Charity Ball. Venue, Windsor Castle, England." Skylar's brows lifted. "Windsor Castle. That's not a ball, that's a declaration." Henry scanned the invitation, his expression unreadable. "Morgan will be there. So will Blackthorn." Skylar exhaled slowly. "Then so will we." Under the glow of 1,000 chandeliers, Windsor Castle transformed into a realm of velvet masks and whispered secrets. Royals mingled with billionaires. Power dressed itself in diamonds and deceit. Skylar entered in a sweeping black gown and intricate lace mask, drawing stares and murmurs. That's Skylar Davis, the Queen of Monaco herself. Across the ballroom, Nathaniel Morgan raised a glass, his cold smile never wavering. but Skylar's attention locked on the man standing beside him, tall, silver-haired with eyes like sharpened glass. Damien Blackthorne. He's the ghost behind Blackthorne Holdings, Marcus whispered at her side. Ex-MI6. Ruthless. Brilliant. Untouchable. Skylar smiled faintly. We'll see. Henry led Skylar onto the marble floor as the orchestra played a haunting waltz. Their movements were fluid, effortless, but their whispers carried strategies sharper than blades. Henry murmured Morgan's consolidating votes through Luxembourg. Then we reroute through Singapore, Skylar countered. Across the room, Damien Blackthorne observed them like a hunter studying prey. When the music ended, he approached his voice, smooth as velvet. Ms. Davis? He said, bowing slightly. I've heard you're rewriting the rules. Skylar tilted her head. Not rewriting, and just correcting them. He smiled, but his eyes stayed cold. Be careful. Rules have a way of correcting people. Later that night, Skylar slipped into Windsor's ancient library to escape the crowd, only to find Damien waiting in the shadows. You know Theodore isn't your biggest problem, he said quietly. Skylar studied him warily. Then enlighten me. Damien stepped closer, his presence commanding. Morgan's financing something darker than a takeover. Blackthorne's here to make sure you don't survive it. Skylar's heartbeat quickened, but her voice stayed calm. And why are you telling me this? Damien's lips curved faintly, because every empire needs a worthy opponent. Before she could respond, he vanished into the crowd, leaving only questions behind. Henry paced at the Shard penthouse, while Skylar sat cross-legged on the bed, laptop open, scanning encrypted files. Damien's dangerous, Henry said. If Morgan partnered with him, this wouldn't be business anymore. It's personal. Skylar looked up, her gaze steady. It's always been personal. Henry stopped pacing, frustration flashing across his face. You're making enemies faster than I can protect you. Skylar's expression softened, her voice low. I didn't ask you to protect me, Henry. I asked you to stand with me. Something shifted between them, then fragile, unspoken, undeniable. Marcus stormed into the London office 2 days later, pale and furious. We've been infiltrated, he said sharply. Someone inside Davis Empire is feeding Blackthorne our moves. Skylar's jaw tightened. Find them, quietly. That night, Henry confronted his own COO, uncovering a trail of encrypted emails, linking back to Amelia Harrington again. She's playing both sides, Henry growled. Skylar nodded slowly. Then let her think she's winning. 3 nights later, Morgan Group launched a coordinated attack on Davis Empire's European assets, freezing billions in liquidity overnight. Panic rippled through the markets. Skylar moved faster. With Henry and Marcus at her side, she orchestrated a counterstrike, rerouting offshore holdings, leveraging sovereign wealth funds, and flipping Luxembourg proxies to regain control. By dawn, Morgan's entire offensive collapsed. Davis Empire stocks surged 18%, but victory came with a price. Marcus called as the sun rose, his voice low. Skylar. Damien Blackthorne just disappeared from every radar we have. That evening, Skylar stood atop the Tower Bridge, the city's lights flickering beneath her. Henry joined her, silent for a moment before speaking softly. You won today. Skylar's gaze remained on the Thames below. Today was survival. Tomorrow, we hunt. Henry looked at her, his expression unreadable. And Damien. She turned her amber eyes fierce in the cold London night. We find him. We find out what he wants. And then we end this. Because Skylar Davis was no longer defending an empire. She was building one. And the next move would be hers. London hadn't slept since the collapse of Morgan Group's European offensive. The headlines raged, Skylar Davis crushes Morgan's London gambit. Blackthorn Holdings silent. From the rooftop of the Shard, Skylar Davis stood beneath the ink-black sky, her amber eyes fixed on the glittering sprawl below. The wind whipped her dark curls, as if carrying whispers from every corner of the financial world. Henry Rodriguez joined her, the weight of exhaustion evident in his shoulders. He carried 2 glasses of bourbon, but offered only one. "You've made the entire world choose sides," he said quietly. "Good," she replied, taking the glass. "It'll make finding enemies easier." But deep down, she knew one enemy remained unseen. Marcus Blackwell stormed into the Davis Empire's London office the next morning, his expression taut. "We found him," Marcus said. Skylar looked up from her laptop. "Damien Blackthorn." Marcus nodded grimly. "Zurich. He's moving billions through hidden clearinghouses. No one does that without purpose." Henry frowned. "Zurich's his playground. If he's consolidating assets there, it means something bigger is coming." Skylar leaned back in her chair, voice calm but razor sharp. "Then Zurich becomes ours before the week's out." A private jet touched down under the cold Swiss stars 2 nights later. Zurich's historic Bahnhofstrasse glittered with wealth, but a war of shadows brewed beneath its pristine facade. Skylar and Henry arrived at a discreet banking summit inside the Grand Dolder Hotel, their entrance turning heads. Whispers trailed them. "That's Skylar Davis, the woman who toppled Kingston and Morgan. Blackthorn's hunting her now." Inside, Marcus slid an encrypted tablet across the table. Marcus explained Damien's restructuring of his offshore entities. He's disguising them under sovereign pension funds. It's brilliant and dangerous. Skylar studied the data, her voice quiet but unyielding. "Find his weak point. Everyone has one." That night, Skylar left the summit early, wandering Zurich's cobblestone streets beneath the soft glow of gas lamps. The quiet was comforting until a black Aston Martin slowed beside her. The passenger window rolled down. "Walking alone in Zurich isn't wise," came Damien Blackthorn's low voice. Skylar didn't break stride. "Neither is threatening me." Damien smiled faintly, his silver hair catching the light. "I'm not your enemy. Not yet." She paused, glancing at him sharply. "Then why dismantle my empire in the shadows?" Damien's gaze held hers, calm but lethal. "Because what's coming will bury us all. I need to know if you can survive it." Before she could respond, the car disappeared into the night. Back at the Grand Dolder, Skylar replayed Damien's words. Henry entered, his expression unreadable. He approached. "You didn't he?" Henry asked. Skylar hesitated, then nodded. "He warned me about something bigger." Henry's jaw tightened. "Or he's playing you." She met his gaze, her voice soft but steady. "Maybe. But we need to know what he's hiding." Henry exhaled slowly, leaning against the doorframe. "I hate that you're right." 2 days later, Marcus uncovered something staggering. Damien's not just building wealth, Marcus explained during a private briefing. He's assembling a ghost network, private intelligence operatives, cyber warfare cells, covert logistics. It's like MI6 built an empire and then went rogue. Skylar's amber eyes narrowed. And he's financing it through Davis Empire's stolen trust funds. Henry slammed his palm on the table. "Then we cut him off at the source." Marcus shook his head. "It's not that simple. His network spans 6 countries. Any wrong move could destabilize half of Europe's markets." Skylar's voice was ice. "Then we don't make a wrong move." Later that evening, an encrypted file landed on Skylar's private server. No sender, no trace. Inside was a single photo, her father Jameson Davis, standing beside a much younger Damien Blackthorn at a private intelligence gala in Dubai. Henry read over her shoulder, stunned. Your father knew him. Skylar's throat tightened more than he knew him. My father funded his first covert operation. Marcus swore under his breath. That explains why Damien wants you alive. He doesn't want Davis' empire. He wants something buried inside it, Skylar whispered. Then we found it before he did. The next night, Skylar infiltrated a Blackthorn-controlled clearinghouse under the guise of a late-night banking inspection. Henry monitored from an encrypted comms channel while Marcus handled network overrides. Inside, Skylar accessed Damien's private ledgers. Billions moved daily between accounts under coded project names, Erebus, Orion, Nemesis. Henry, she whispered into her earpiece. He's not funding companies. He's financing operations. Suddenly, the security feeds cut to static. A low, familiar voice echoed behind her. You're getting reckless, Skylar, Damien said, stepping into the shadows. Skylar turned slowly, her heartbeat steady despite the adrenaline surging through her veins. Then stop underestimating me. For a moment, silence hung between them like a blade. You want the truth? Damien asked softly. Meet me in Geneva tomorrow night. And then he was gone. Geneva's Palace of Nations loomed beneath the soft glow of midnight. Inside a private chamber, Damien weighted a dossier on the table between them. He said quietly that this isn't about Morgan Kingston or even me. It's about Project Erebus. Your father built it, Skylar, and it's resurfacing. Skylar's pulse thundered in her ears. What is Erebus? Damien leaned forward, his silver eyes glinting, a covert financial weapon designed to destabilize entire nations without firing a shot. Your father buried it years ago. Someone's resurrecting it. Henry's voice was tight. Damien slid the dossier across the table. Inside were surveillance photos of Skylar Davis meeting with operatives from Erebus. Skylar's hands clenched around the file. Then my uncle's not just after control. He's after global chaos. As they left the Palace of Nations, the Geneva air was sharp, the lake's reflection trembling beneath the lights. Henry glanced at Skylar, his voice quiet but resolute. If Erebus is real, this isn't just business anymore. This is war. Skylar's amber eyes blazed against the night. Then we bring the war to them. Damien's voice carried from behind them, calm and confident. Not yet. Erebus isn't ready. When it activates, the world as we know it ends. Skylar turned unyielding. Then we end Erebus first. For the first time, Damien Blackthorn smiled. Because now their enemies were the same. Snowflakes drifted softly over Geneva as dawn broke, but Skylar Davis felt no peace. From the balcony of the Intercontinental Hotel, she watched the distant Alps glow under the pale sun, her mind racing. Project Erebus. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a ticking time bomb. Henry Rodriguez joined her, his expression grave, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. You didn't sleep, he said quietly. Neither did you, she replied, accepting the cup. Henry leaned against the railing. Damien claims Erebus can cripple entire nations overnight. If Theodore controls it, we're looking at financial Armageddon. Skylar's amber eyes hardened. Then we take Erebus before he does. Later that morning, Marcus Blackwell arrived with urgent news. Theodore's in Dubai, Marcus said sharply. He's meeting Erebus operatives at an undisclosed summit. We intercepted encrypted chatter suggesting they plan to trigger Phase 1 within 10 days. Henry frowned. What's Phase 1? Marcus hesitated. A coordinated collapse of sovereign bonds across Asia. The shock waves would reach Europe in hours. Skylar's voice was soft but lethal. Book the jet. We leave tonight. The Burj Al Arab glittered under the desert sun, hosting the most secretive financial summit in years. Skylar walked through its gilded halls, wearing a champagne silk gown, every step calculated elegance. Henry walked beside her, his tuxedo crisp, his presence commanding. Together, they were the storm everyone whispered about. Damien Blackthorne joined them at the bar, dressed in a tailored black suit, his silver hair catching the soft lights. "Theodore's here," Damien murmured without looking at them. "Top floor, surrounded by Erebus security." Skylar sipped her drink calmly. "Then we bring him down where he feels invincible." Damien arched a brow. "You're bolder than your father ever was." Her amber eyes cut into him. "I'm not my father." That night, Skylar slipped away from the gala into a restricted conference wing, guided by encrypted intel Marcus had hacked moments before. Theodore Davis sat flanked by two Erebus operatives, reviewing a digital map of collapsing markets. Skylar stepped into the light. "Uncle," she said softly. Theodore's head snapped up, his expression, first startled, then amused. "Niece, you've come far to watch history being written." Skylar approached slowly, her heels clicking against marble. "History remembers tyrants, too." He leaned back, smirking. "Can you stop Erebus?" "You don't even understand it." Skylar's voice dropped to a whisper, sharp as glass. "I understand enough to know you'll burn with it." Before he could respond, Damien's voice echoed from behind. "We're done here." Erebus security swarmed in, but Henry intercepted them. His precision efficient, his loyalty absolute. Back in their private suite, Skylar confronted Damien. "You knew Theodore was controlling Erebus months ago. Why hide it?" Damien poured himself a drink, his voice calm but unyielding. "Because Erebus isn't Theodore's, it never was." Henry frowned. "Then whose is it?" Damien's silver eyes locked on Skylar. "Your father's. Jameson Davis built Erebus. Theodore just found the keys." The room fell silent. Skylar's hands trembled, though her voice remained steady. "Why would my father create something like this?" Damien set his glass down. "Because he thought he could control the world before someone else did." Marcus interrupted with another discovery, an encrypted archive buried inside Davis Empire's oldest servers. Accessing it required 3 biometric signatures: Jameson Davis, Theodore Davis, and Skylar. Inside the archive were blueprints, intelligence dossiers, and one chilling directive: Project Erebus must remain dormant unless global sovereignty is threatened. Henry scanned the files, his jaw tightening. "Theodore's triggering it for profit, not defense." Skylar whispered, "Then we shut it down." As Skylar prepared to leave Dubai that night, a soft knock came at her suite's door. Expecting Marcus, she opened it to find Amelia Harrington instead. "You should have stayed in Monaco," Amelia murmured. Skylar's amber gaze was cold. "And you should have chosen the winning side." Amelia smirked faintly, sliding a small drive onto the table. "I have Theodore's next target, but it comes with a price." Skylar folded her arms. "You've betrayed everyone in this game. Why should I trust you?" Amelia leaned in, her voice low. "Because if you don't, Erebus activates, and none of us survives." Amelia's data revealed Theodore's next move. Phase 2: collapsing European energy grids through coordinated cyberstrikes, triggering mass panic and market implosion. Henry's tone was clipped. "If he pulls this off, Paris, Berlin, London, all go dark." Skylar met his gaze, her voice steady, despite the weight of her words. "Then we stop him in Geneva before he launches it." The Palace of Nations buzzed with unease as Skylar, Henry, Marcus, and Damien gathered in a secure chamber deep beneath the facility. Holographic displays mapped out Theodore's planned attacks. Marcus explained that we can shut down Erebus remotely if we breach his command nodes. But the network is triple encrypted and buried inside 6 sovereign firewalls. Damien's voice was low. Then we bypass them. I built those walls once I can break them. Skylar turned to Henry. Get us the access we need, whatever it takes. Henry nodded. Done. As night fell, the final countdown began. Theodore had positioned himself inside a fortified Zurich data hub, preparing to launch Phase 2 at sunrise. Skylar stood on the terrace of the Geneva suite, watching the lake glimmer under the cold stars, her breath slow and controlled. Henry approached quietly, his voice a low murmur. Once this starts, there's no going back. Skylar's amber eyes blazed in the night. Then we don't stop until it's over. From the shadows, Damien's voice cut through the silence. Welcome to the real war, Ms. Davis. Erebus wakes at dawn. Skylar turned to face them both, her expression carved from steel. Then so do we. The private jet sliced through the night sky, its lights glimmering above the Alps as Skylar Davis sat in silence, her gaze fixed on the encrypted files glowing on her tablet. Beside her, Henry Rodriguez watched her profile in the dim cabin light, sensing the weight pressing against her. You've been quiet, Henry murmured. I'm thinking, Skylar replied softly. Zurich isn't just about stopping Theodore. It's about ending Erebus. Marcus Blackwell leaned forward from across the cabin, his tone grim. We have 6 hours before Phase 2 activates. If we miss the window, Europe goes dark. Damien Blackthorne, seated in the shadows, spoke for the first time. Theodore fortified the Zurich hub like a war bunker. Once we go in, there's no retreat. Skylar looked up, her amber eyes burning. Then we don't retreat. Zurich's Kraftwerkzentrum, an unmarked high-security data fortress beneath the Swiss National Bank, thrummed with energy as Theodore Davis prepared for launch. Hundreds of servers glowed like a digital heartbeat, the room's cold blue light reflecting off his face. Are the nodes aligned? Theodore demanded. An Erebus operative nodded. Yes, sir. Final authorization required. Theodore's smirk widened. Then at sunrise, the world learns who holds its leash. But outside the fortress, under a blanket of snow, Skylar and her team gathered silently, reviewing the plan one last time. Henry's voice was steady. Marcus will breach the perimeter firewalls, Damien's handling of internal overrides. Skylar, you get to the central console and extract the Erebus core. Skylar nodded once. Let's end this. At 02:14, the first strike came. Marcus infiltrated the Swiss grid, using forged banking credentials, rerouting clearance protocols, while Damien deployed an encrypted override worm to blind Erebus's surveillance system. Alarms briefly flickered, but within seconds, silence returned. Outer security down, Marcus whispered. You're clear to move. Henry led the advance, cutting through biometric gates until the team reached the main control chamber. There, a reinforced vault door loomed, sealed with 6-factor authentication. Damien stepped forward, fingertips gliding over the console. I built this firewall once, he murmured. Let's see if I can kill it. Within minutes, the vault unlocked with a hiss. Skylar exhaled slowly. We're in. Inside, Theodore stood waiting. So he said softly, his smile razor sharp, the prodigal niece returns. Skylar stepped forward, her heels silent on the polished floor. Step away from the console. Theodore. He laughed low and cold. Do you understand what this is? Erebus isn't a weapon. It's evolution. Nations fall. Empires rise. And we will be gods among them. Skylar's amber gaze burned. No, you'll be a tyrant. Theodore's eyes narrowed, voice darkening. You sound just like your father before he betrayed me. Skylar froze, her voice icy. My father died trying to stop you. For the first time, Theodore's composure cracked. Suddenly, an Erebus operative activated the launch sequence. Sirens blared as the countdown appeared on the central display. Marcus cursed under his breath. "He's locked us out." Damien strode to the console, typing commands faster than thought. Not for long. Skylar turned to Henry. "Get me direct access to the core protocols. If Damien cracks the outer shell, I can disable Erebus from the inside." Henry handed her a secure key drive. "Go." With 10 minutes left, the room became a storm of keystrokes and shouted commands. Damien's override breached layer after layer of security, but Theodore anticipated every move. "You can't stop." "Erebus," Theodore taunted. "I rebuilt it stronger than your father imagined." Skylar's fingers danced over her console, sweat beading at her temple. "You rebuilt it, uncle. But you didn't design it." "I did." Theodore froze, confusion flashing in his eyes. "You helped your father code Erebus," Damien realized aloud. "That's why you're the only one who can kill it." Skylar didn't answer. She was already inside the kernel. As the countdown reached 5 minutes, chaos erupted. An explosion rocked the chamber as a hidden squad of Erebus mercenaries stormed in, rifles raised. Henry dove behind the console, returning fire as Marcus covered the team's flank. Damien drew a suppressed sidearm, and his movements were precise and surgical. Skylar Henry shouted over the noise, "Stay on the code." Skylar's hands trembled, but she didn't falter. "I won't let him win." Every second bled into eternity. With 3 minutes left, Amelia Harrington appeared from the shadows, her gun trained on Henry. "Step away from the console," she ordered. Henry turned, stunned. "Amelia, why?" Her smile was bitter. "Because Theodore promised me power." Skylar didn't look up from her console. "You'll die for nothing." Damien moved faster than thought, disarming Amelia in a single motion. "Playtime's over." Amelia glared at Skylar, then vanished into the chaos. Skylar's code sliced through the final security barrier. Her father's encrypted failsafe emerged, a single hidden command. She whispered it under her breath. "Elysium override." The countdown froze at 03. The chamber went silent, except for the hum of dormant servers. Erebus was dead. Theodore's face twisted in disbelief. How Skylar rose slowly, her amber gaze unyielding. "Because you never understood him. Father didn't build Erebus to destroy. He built it so I could save it." Outside, Zurich's snowy skyline glittered beneath the rising sun. From the rooftop, Skylar stood with Henry and Damien, the cold air biting against her skin. Marcus approached, breath visible in the chill. "It's over. Erebus is offline." Damien shook his head slowly. "No. This was only one node. There are others. Bigger. Hidden." Henry's hand brushed Skylar's as he spoke softly. "Then we hunt them, one by one." Skylar's amber eyes reflected the first light of dawn. "We ended Theodore's game," she whispered. "Now we start ours." Behind them, alarms wailed faintly from the shattered data hub below, the first sign that new enemies had already awakened. Because while Erebus slept, the world had just entered a deeper war. Zurich's skyline glittered under the pale winter sun. But for Skylar Davis, victory felt hollow. Erebus had been stopped, yes, but not destroyed. On the penthouse balcony of the Bower au Lac, she traced the rim of her untouched champagne glass, her amber eyes distant. Henry Rodriguez stepped out, his coat draped over his arm, his quiet strength grounding the chaos swirling around them. "You should rest," he said softly. Skylar shook her head. Erebus was only one node, Henry. Damien was right. There are others, bigger, hidden. He leaned against the railing beside her. "Then we find them before anyone else does." A shadow crossed her expression. "Or before they find us." Damien Blackthorne studied a holographic projection of Europe inside the sweet crimson marks dotting major financial hubs. Erebus wasn't the system he explained. It was a gatekeeper. Its shutdown triggered a cascade. Somewhere out there, the real network just woke up. Marcus frowned. How many nodes Damien's silver gaze lifted? 13. Each is buried inside sovereign infrastructures. Paris, Singapore, Dubai, Washington. Skylar's voice was calm but laced with steel. Then we dismantle them one by one. Damien tilted his head, watching her. You're declaring war on ghosts, Ms. Davis. You'll need allies stronger than empires. Henry interjected firmly. Or we become one. 3 days later, the team arrived in Paris for an emergency gathering of European financial leaders at the Louvre Conference Hall. Security was suffocating, tension heavy in the air. Skylar entered, draped in white satin, her presence commanding silence. As she addressed the assembly, her voice was measured but unyielding. Erebus isn't just a cyber weapon. It's a coordinated coup against sovereignty. If we don't unite now, no single empire survives what's coming. Whispers rippled across the chamber. From the back, Nathaniel Morgan rose, his smirk venomous. You expect us to trust you, Davis, after dismantling half the global markets in Zurich? Skylar met his gaze steadily. I don't expect trust. I hope survival instincts, even yours. The room fell silent. That night, Skylar wandered the Louvre's darkened corridors, the echo of her heels sharp against marble. Suddenly a figure stepped from the shadows, a hooded woman, her voice smooth, deliberate. You're chasing Elysium. Skylar stiffened. Who are you? The woman lowered her hood, revealing sharp features framed by raven black hair. Call me Celine, she said. Damien isn't telling you everything. Erebus was built to protect something more profound, the Elysium Protocol. Skylar's breath caught. What's Elysium? Celine leaned close, her whisper, a knife's edge. Not what? Who? Back at their Parisian safe house, Skylar confronted Damien. Celine approached me, she said coldly. She says Elysium isn't a system, it's a person. Damien's jaw tightened. She wasn't supposed to find you. Henry crossed his arms. You knew. Damien's silver eyes met Skylar's. Elysium is a ghost asset created by your father, a human failsafe, the only one who can permanently dismantle the network. Skylar's voice trembled slightly. Where is this person? Damien hesitated. Missing. For 20 years. Amelia Harrington reappeared days later. This time not as an enemy, but as an informant. I've tracked whispers of Elysium to Kyoto, she said quietly. There's a research lab beneath Mount Higashiyama. Off-grid. Untraceable. Skylar studied her carefully. And why help me now? Amelia's smirk was faint, tired. Because Theodore isn't dead, and he's looking for Elysium too. Henry's fists clenched at his sides. Then we move now. Kyoto glimmered beneath a sea of paper lanterns and winter mist as Skylar, Henry, Damien, and Marcus slipped into the ancient city under assumed identities. Beneath the surface of tradition and serenity, the Higashiyama facility pulsed with hidden technology, guarded by mercenaries trained to kill. The team infiltrated the underground complex, using stolen access keys, weaving through narrow glass corridors with quantum servers. Marcus whispered into the comms, thermal signatures ahead 3 guards. Damien neutralized them in silence, his precision unmatched. At the core of the facility, Skylar froze. Suspended within a cryogenic chamber lay a young woman, her chest rising slowly, wires trailing from her temples. On the display above her, Elysium Protocol, active. Skylar's fingers brushed the control panel, heart pounding. Is she alive? Damien studied the vitals. Yes. Stasis for 20 years. Your father hid her here before Theodore betrayed him. Henry's voice was tight. Who is she? Damien hesitated. Her name is Arya Kalin. She was your father's protege and the architect of Erebus. Skylar stared at the woman behind the glass, emotions storming in her chest. She's the key. Suddenly alarms blared. Marcus cursed. They know we're here. We've got company. Gunfire erupted as Theodore's private strike team stormed the facility. The chamber trembled under the force of detonations, shadows flashing under crimson sirens. Henry dragged Skylar behind cover as Marcus and Damien held the line. "Get her out!" Henry shouted, gesturing to the chamber. Skylar slammed the override, releasing Arya from the cryogenic pod. The woman collapsed into her arms, weak but conscious. Who are you?" Arya rasped. Skylar met her gaze steadily. "I'm Skylar Davis, and we're ending what they started." By dawn, the team escaped Kyoto with Arya in tow, regrouping at a safe house overlooking the mist-shrouded Kamo River. Damien studied Arya's decrypted memories, fragments of the original Erebus code flickering across the screens. "This changes everything," he murmured. "With Arya, we can dismantle the entire network. But Theodore won't stop until he has her." Skylar stood at the window, watching the first rays of sunlight break through the fog. "Then we stop running," she said softly. "It's time we take the fight to them." Henry stepped beside her, taking her hand for the first time without hesitation. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." Skylar turned to the team, her voice steady, commanding. "To everyone watching this story, remember, power means nothing without purpose. Stay sharp, stay informed, because when the next storm comes, and it will, we'll need every ally we can get." She looked back toward the rising sun, her amber eyes blazing with unspoken promise. "This isn't the end, it's the beginning."